Keto versus carnivore. Which one will actually work better? What I am going to attempt to do in this video is kind of share with you my experiences with both of these diets. I've done both of them. I'm actually a keto coach who has helped hundreds of men from all over the world to lose at least 40 pounds in 16 weeks using my Keto Shed 40 coaching program. If you want more info on that, I'll go ahead and drop a link in the description of this video that'll take you to another video that kind of explains a little bit more in detail on how I could potentially help you. So let's dive right in and talk about what are actually the differences between keto, between carnivore, what are the benefits of each, and what are some of the mistakes that people tend to make with the keto diet and carnivore diet. So let's just start right from the top. My own experience when I did keto back in 2018, I was doing more of a cyclical and a targeted type of keto. You may not be aware, but there's actually three types of keto. There is targeted, there is cyclical, and then there's very, very strict keto. And I've done all three of these. So let's start with the targeted keto. Targeted keto is more for really high level athletes who still need a little bit of carbohydrates before their training and after their training. So what I did is I would consume maybe 30 grams of carbohydrates coming from white rice about an hour before my workout, and then I would have a little bit of white rice after the workout. So the carbohydrates were essentially still very small. I probably was averaging about 50 grams of carbohydrates when I did targeted keto. Now, traditionally, when you do a keto diet, your carbohydrates need to be like 30, maybe even 20 grams, and that is it. So I was eating about 50 grams, all right? So I did that for a little while, and then I transitioned into cyclical keto, where this is where you pretty much eat keto really clean Monday through Saturday, and then you have an all-out cheat meal on Sunday, all right? This is where nothing is off the table. You can eat whatever you want, and then come Monday, you go right back into strict keto. From there, I wanted to experience, okay, what kind of results can I get from strict keto? So this was in about 2018, I went all in strict keto. And by July, so in about 7 months, so from January to July, I lost 70 pounds in those 7 months, all the way back in 2018. And I felt absolutely amazing. The only drawback to doing a very strict keto diet where you're not cheating at all is I kind of lost weight a little too fast. And there were many times where my wife's friends would see pictures of me and my family, and they would wonder if there was something wrong with me. They thought I had some type of disease or cancer because I had lost a lot of weight. I got absolutely shredded back in 2018. Now, once I got to my goal, okay, I would go back to doing cyclical keto. So this is where I would, like I said, I would eat Monday through Saturday, and every Sunday I would have an all-out cheat meal. And I maintained that level of leanness. I was around between that 173 to 180, and I had started at 243. So by cheating once a week, like I would have these epic cheats where I was eating like 5,000 calories. Now, I would not recommend this. I kind of had to learn from that journey to not really do that. You're kind of defeating the purpose of better health. Why would you go keto for 6 days and then spike your insulin and blood sugars on Sunday? It's not a really healthy way to live. I had to kind of learn through that experience. But anyway, I lost that 70 pounds in 7 months, and I kept it off for a good couple years, but we all know what happened in 2020. I fell off the keto, train, and I started eating whatever I wanted, and I gained a lot of weight back. That's the only drawback to keto is once you go off keto and you go back to the standard American diet, also known as the SAD diet, which actually is pretty sad, you're going to regain all that weight back. And I could not get back on the horse. I literally stayed overweight for 4 years until this year in 2025, I decided to get back into shape where I started the carnivore diet. But before we get into the carnivore diet, there's just a couple more things I want to talk about the keto diet if you're not familiar with what keto is. Now, when you do a keto diet, the majority of your calories are going to come from fat, about 75%. And 20% of your calories is going to come from protein, and only 5% of your calories are going to come from carbohydrates, which is going to come from vegetables, all right? That is one of the main differences between keto and carnivore is keto, you can have vegetables, you can even have nuts, you can even have berries like strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, and raspberries. Whereas the carnivore diet, it is very restrictive. You're basically just eating meat, eggs, and fish, and that is it. So let's talk about the benefits of the keto diet. So if you're struggling with being very overweight, you have insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune diseases, gut issues, the keto diet would be absolutely perfect for you. In fact, it's a great way to transition from the standard American diet to a keto diet. It's a little bit easier to make that transition than making the transition of the standard American diet to carnivore, because carnivore is very, very restrictive. Now let's talk about the mistakes that people make on a keto diet. And one of the biggest mistakes, I see this all the time, is a lot of these keto snacks, keto desserts that you find in the grocery store that have a keto label on the front of the package. But when you turn it over to actually look at the ingredients, you'll find it's not really keto at all. This is very popular. All you have to do is go on Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, and you see all these keto recipes, keto bread, keto muffins, keto cake, keto brownies, keto fat bombs. I mean, there's just no end to all of these type of keto desserts. But that's a big mistake because a lot of these desserts are not really keto. Now, when I mean keto, I'm talking eat eggs, meat, fish, vegetables, nuts, avocados, cheese, butter, olive oil, avocado oil, MCT oils. You want to just stick with those food groups, not all these types of different desserts and all that. The other mistake I see a lot of people eat is they think they can pound a bunch of ribeye steaks, bacon, and butter. What you have to understand, because keto is so high in fat, for every gram of fat is equivalent to 9 calories. So if you're not actually tracking your calories, you can actually gain weight on the keto diet. Now, if you're just starting on the keto diet, don't worry about tracking calories. But if you start to notice your weight loss is plateauing, you may want to actually just track everything that goes into your mouth. And then you can see like, wow, I'm actually consuming a lot of calories for my body. Maybe I need to start, tracking it better and actually eating based on my body type. Simple formula, just take your body weight in pounds, multiplied by 10. That's how many calories you would need to eat on a keto diet. Now let's transition into the carnivore diet. So what exactly is the carnivore diet? It's very similar to keto, except you're very, very limited to just meat, eggs, and seafood, and that is it. Now the carnivore diet can be a little tricky transitioning from your standard American diet, especially if you're coming from a very high carbohydrate diet, very processed, maybe you have a severe sugar addiction. That might be a better way to transition to carnivore because you've got major gut issues, you have major autoimmune disease, major sugar addictions, and maybe you did keto, but you noticed that you just weren't losing the weight as fast as you would like, then the carnivore diet actually might be more beneficial for you. But again, this is very tricky when you do carnivore because you're very, very limited. So if you're going out to different, maybe you're at like a picnic or you're at a reunion or you're with family on a birthday and all they're seeing is you eating meat, they might give you the dirty eye or the dirty look and wondering, why are you just eating meat? Whereas keto, you can kind of go out and people don't really notice too much what you're eating, especially if you're putting vegetables on your plate and maybe they've got some fruit like berries and you're eating some meat or something like that at a barbecue. You can kind of get away with it. But with carnivore, it's so limited and it's very restricted that people might give you a weird look wondering like, why are you just eating meat? So some of the common mistakes though that people make on a carnivore diet is they'll do carnivore all week and then they'll cheat by having some vegetables on the weekend. I know that sounds nuts. Like, how can eating vegetables be cheating? Well, when you're on a carnivore diet, it essentially is because you're not supposed to be eating any type of carbohydrates. Whereas the keto diet, you can have carbohydrates, only 5% coming from vegetables and fruit and some nuts. But with carnivore, it's virtually zero carbohydrates. So you may find that the keto diet is a little bit more easier to transition to when you're starting on your weight loss journey. But if you notice your weight is starting to plateau a little bit, then the next option would be to transition into carnivore and then apply some intermittent fasting to speed up the process even faster. I hope that helps kind of give you an idea of the difference between keto and carnivore. Like I said, on my own journey, I started at keto, but then this year in 2025, I did the carnivore diet. And I did notice with the carnivore diet, I lost weight even faster. I was averaging about 16 pounds a month. I started at like 233 this year in 2025. And in 10 weeks, I lost 40 pounds. So that was very, very fast. So depending on where you're at, you know yourself better than I do. If you're coming off of severe addictions and you want to kind of ease into this, maybe the keto diet would be a better fit. But if you're just ready to go all in and you're ready to get this weight off as fast as possible, carnivore may be the way to go, all right? And carnivore really has the ability to help you with severe case of gut issues, autoimmune disease. I mean, if you're just really struggling with chronic disease, carnivore actually would work even better, all right? So essentially, those are the differences between keto and carnivore. You can choose which one you want to try, and let me know in the comments, which one have you tried and which one have you noticed a better result? I would love to hear about it, all right? So I want you to make sure to like this video. It really helps the algorithm, and always hit that notification bell. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see you then.